we've got to get used to the fact that there are other people in the world that are doing better than we are. So when I speak to the Turks that we saw today, they see the world as an opportunity, not a challenge. When I go to China, we now have 12,000 people in China. Our business here in Spain is about $500 million of revenue. In China, we are 1.1 billion. That 500 million excludes the interest that we have in the GNA and Media Pro. But what I'm saying to you is there are parts of the world. Our Indian business is $450 million. Our Brazilian business is $700 million. Right? And the growth rates, as I said before, are 15 versus 5. If I look at Spain this year for us, we grew in Spain by a little bit despite the crisis. The budgets, I was just looking at the budgets on the plane coming over, and our budgets for Spain next year, for the company as a whole, as I said in Barcelona last week, it's 4%. We haven't been through the budgets, but we'll start to look at them in the first 2 weeks of December in New York. So worldwide, we think, at the moment, not a commitment, but we think 4%. France, where I was yesterday, projecting up 2%. Spain down 2%. All our businesses. So there are parts of the world that are growing faster, number one. This article that I referred to in Breaking News spoke about the number of people that have been brought out of poverty in those growing parts of the world. You know, since 1985 in China, when Deng Xiaoping made his famous speech that China was going to surge forward economically, we've seen probably 300 to 400 million people taken out of poverty. The same would apply, maybe not quite as big a number in India. The same would apply, not as big a number in Brazil. The same would apply in Russia. And if you look at the health, the longevity, if you look at healthcare, if you look at food, if you look at electricity, in terms of electricity availability in the world, despite the growing inequality that everybody is concerned about, and many people are concerned about, particularly in the West, the simple fact is that poverty levels, through economic progress, free trade, that's why the protectionism movement is such a problem. All of this, we have made tremendous progress. The problem for you and for me is that progress is not here in Western Europe. And as you go into the 100 days here in Spain, as our coalition government in the UK wrestles, they've made the reductions in government spending. When the coalition was first elected in the UK 18 months ago, 12 months ago, they made the adjustments. They said in government spending, they haven't cut government spending, by the way, they just let it increase at a lower rate. Government spending in the UK will rise between 2010 and 2015, not in real terms, it's true it falls in real terms, but in money terms it goes up. And you don't run your business, and I don't run our business on an adjusted basis. We do it on nominal terms. So they haven't cut spending, but they've reduced the rate of increase. The government now has to have a growth strategy. Because if you have a company that's in trouble and you cut costs, at some point in time you have to give the people inside the business some vision of the future, otherwise they're all looking down at their feet, they're not looking up at the mountain. And this is the critical issue. So you can do what I think the Prime Minister has to do here in Spain, which in a way he was elected to do, although his election manifesto campaign, as I understood it, said very little about the detail. What he talked about was employment being the number one priority. So no detail. And one of the ways to defeat people in political campaigns is just say they did a bad job and never say what you're going to do. And it's a tactic which is extremely effective, but then when you get into power, you have to figure out what the devil you're going to do. But I think the heart of the answer to your question is, for 200 years, the West has been in the ascendancy. If you went back to the early 19th century, China and India were 40% of worldwide GDP. Over the last 200 years, the West has got stronger. Western Europe, the United States, and others have not been as strong. That is reversed. There are many Chinese who you hear say that the Chinese have been the strongest nation throughout history, and the last 200 years have been a blip in history, and it's changed. So I think this is something that we find, I went to a conference in America, Wall Street Journal conference in Washington, and on the first night we had a dinner, there were about 50 CEOs, and there were Chinese business people, government officials in the room. There was a lot of China bashing going on. The simple fact is that anybody running a multinational company like WPP, or we're trying to, depends for its growth on China to a very large degree. And so it's critical.